LegalRideshare, for those of you who do not know, is the only injury law firm in the United States that concentrates on Uber and Lyft accidents. So we represent drivers who have been injured in crashes, passengers who have been injured in crashes, and victims as well. Ride Guru is a one-stop shop for all things taxi and rideshare. They've got tools like rideshare pricing comparison. They're an excellent community of voices. So one of the things that we've been doing with Ride Guru is creating this environment of question and answer where people can come in and get questions answered with no judgment. I know a lot of you are on Facebook, obviously, and it seems like if you go into a Facebook group and you ask a question that you think is pretty basic, all of a sudden people are chewing you up for it. Well, at Ride Guru, that's not going to happen. You've got a question, you get an answer. We try to contribute where we can in terms of legal advice, but drivers are active in helping with, where's the best place to get a fare on a Saturday night? What's the best thing to do if a passenger vomits in your car or causes damage? These are all topics that people are ready and able to assist with. So we're really excited to work with Ride Guru, and we're really excited to have everybody here tonight. One of the things that I wanted to really dive into immediately is rideshare insurance. Rideshare is obviously a newer industry. I know it's been around for probably a decade now, but most people, when they get into it, aren't told exactly what they need. So this is your own business. When you get into a car each night, you are operating as an entrepreneur and you need to protect yourself. So what we've done is we at LegalRideshare have created several blog posts that explain insurance, and we've partnered with different organizations to help drivers out. But I want to synthesize that for you tonight. When you're in rideshare, there are 3 different periods to your operation. So there's period 1, which is when you're on the app waiting to connect with a fare. Period 2, when you are on the way to pick up a passenger. And period 3, when you've got a passenger in the car. Period 2 and 3, your rideshare insurance through the company is generally going to protect you. But there are all sorts of gaps that come into play with period 1. That's really what I want to concentrate on tonight. So period 1, you're cruising around. A lot of drivers don't understand that they have limited protection during this period. 1, if they're in an accident that they cause, there's not going to be sufficient insurance coverage to fix your vehicle. You need to be taking out insurance, rideshare endorsements, that's going to protect you. Otherwise, that vehicle might be off the road for a long period of time until you can scrap together the money necessary to get the car fixed. Rideshare companies do a terrible job of explaining gaps like that to drivers when they sign up. You always hear the terms fully covered. Everybody thinks, I'm covered by Uber, I'm covered by Lyft, I don't need anything special. Well, if you go in to your personal insurer and you say, I just need the bare bones because I know that Uber is going to cover me, you are going to be in for really, really bad news if something unfortunate happens. The other scenario would be if you are hit by a driver who flees the scene or hit by an uninsured driver. If you get hit and injured in that scenario during period 1, Uber and Lyft provide bare bones uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. That means your medical bills, your lost wages, your pain and suffering are really not covered during that period. You are going to be trying to come up with that money yourself. And again, Uber and Lyft tell their drivers, don't worry about it, you're covered, just get the insurance that, come in with the insurance that you've always had, you're going to be fine. That's not true, and we talk with drivers every single day who are injured and damaged as a result. I do want to hit on periods 2 and 3 because it's important to understand where you're covered and where you're not. Uber provides, and Lyft provides as well, $1 million of liability coverage during those periods. That's really good. That's more than anybody's private insurance company or policy is going to cover. But what they don't cover is additional collision coverage, meaning property damage to your vehicle, unless you've taken that out yourself. So let me give you an example. You have taken out a bare bones insurance policy, liability only, for yourself. If you get into an accident during period 2 and 3, say you cause it, Uber and Lyft will not pay to fix your car because you didn't have the coverage in your personal policy. They will match whatever coverage you have taken out. So for that reason, you need to ensure that you've taken out collision coverage so that you are protected. Your car is your livelihood. We all know that. Unlike most jobs where, if I get hurt, I can still get to work. I'll hop on the bus and that'll be just fine. But if you get into an accident, your car's damaged, it's in the shop, you literally can't go to work the next day. You can't earn money. So you have to protect yourself by taking out the proper insurance. Proper insurance in sum is collision coverage and a rideshare endorsement. That's going to ensure that you have no gaps and proper coverage during all scenarios. Don't fall trap to what so many drivers have. You have to take out the protection to ensure your rights are protected. We've talked about insurance, and what's the reason why we have insurance? In case something bad happens. So at LegalRideshare, we talk to drivers who have been involved in accidents every single day. Many drivers, are obviously excellent at their job. They don't anticipate that they're going to cause a collision. They don't anticipate that they're going to be the one, coming to my office or giving me a call on the phone. But what they're not taking into consideration is that there's a lot of bad drivers on the road. So even if you're excellent, even if you do everything right, you still may find yourself in a situation where you're in a collision and you're not exactly sure what to do. At LegalRideshare, we tell drivers every day that the first step is to call the police. So many drivers think, this isn't that big of a deal. It's, the damage isn't that bad. I'll just pass my information to the other driver. They'll give me their information. Maybe we'll take pictures of license plates. We'll get back on our way. In an accident and injury situation, it's vital that you make an accident report, and that's for multiple reasons. One, you want an independent source to come and verify that this incident took place. The police will come to the scene in many situations, and if not, they'll have you drive to their station. But regardless, they will verify, yes, this event took place. And that's important for the insurance claim, and it's also going to be important for your issue with Uber or Lyft. If you get into an accident, that's something that the companies will likely find out about, and you're going to need to give them information that explains what happened, how it happened, when it happened, were you on the clock, were you not on the clock. The police report helps corroborate all of that information. The second thing, no matter what happens, your fault, not your fault, be polite, don't lose your cool, but don't admit fault, because that's really not your determination. A lot of people will think to themselves, I'm just trying to be a nice guy, I'm just trying to, smooth things over here. If you say, this was my fault, or if you apologize for causing the accident, that's going to end up in the police report. And that's going to come back to bite you when damages are trying to be determined. Whose insurance is going to pay to fix the vehicles? Who's going to cover the medical bills? If you've already made that decision at the scene, well, you're behind the 8 ball. Really let the insurance companies and the lawyers figure that out down the road. We also recommend that unless you're in a dangerous place, if you're in the middle of an intersection, you may want to move the cars, but otherwise, try to keep the vehicles in the position in which the accident occurred. That's important for the police report, that's important for photos that you might want to take. It's going to show what happened, it's going to show where the impacts occurred, and that's going to be evidence for you when it comes to liability, who caused the accident, and damages. Is this the type of event that could have caused the injuries that maybe you're complaining of? When you've got passengers in the vehicle, This is a little bit different for rideshare drivers than it is for everybody else. You don't know these people. You don't really have much of their information. And let me tell you, it can be very difficult to get it from Uber or Lyft down the road. So if you get in an accident, turn around and make sure that you talk to the witnesses, talk to the people in your car, get names, get email addresses, get phone numbers. They're going to be willing most of the time to give you this information because they understand that there's a claim that's going to be made. So don't let those passengers leave before asking them to help. You'll want to exchange insurance information, make sure you get the other driver's information in case they take off, and with that, you'll have enough evidence to support your claim. Now, what happens if people are hurt? You're feeling a little dizzy, your passenger's saying that their neck hurts. It's really important that you inform the police officers that come to the scene or that you talk to on the phone about those injuries, because that makes it into the report. Injuries that are reported at the scene are obviously important information when we're talking about claims down the road. I am being told that you can hear a little bit of music in the background. I do apologize. We share a wall with a bar next door. He's got an open mic night on Sundays. We're not usually here at 9 p.m. on Sunday. So if you can hear, please just jam along with us. Anyway, we were talking about the accident scene. At the accident scene, reporting pains, reporting limitations is really important. Now, in the same vein, you want to go get checked out. Most of the time, people don't feel pains right at the scene. If you're in a bad accident, you've got a broken bone, you're going to feel that. But if you've got whiplash or maybe you strike your head on the steering wheel, your adrenaline might kick in and you might think to yourself, boy, I'm lucky. Nothing happened here. I'm a little shaken up, but I'm fine. Well, if you feel anything, we recommend that you go see your primary care doctor or go to the hospital or even just stop in an urgent care. And that's for two reasons. One, it's to make sure that you're healthy. And two, if those pains progress down the road, if tomorrow, 3 days from now, you end up feeling more pain, the pains progress, they get worse, you start feeling different symptoms. You've then got record of the fact that there was an accident and an associated injury. So many drivers come to us because they're really scared about the costs of medical treatment. They say, I would have gone to the doctor earlier. I would have, my back's been killing me. I feel it going down into my legs, but I didn't go for a month because I don't have health insurance. Well, that's what we're here for. We help drivers get in with treaters who are going to see them maybe without medical insurance and will help out with the injury claim and associate their bill with what the driver is able to recover down the road. And they will help ensure that the drivers don't have those gaps in treatment, which can be fatal to injury insurance claims. So we recommend drivers get treatment soon after an accident, and please call us if you need help getting in with that medical provider, because that's not an issue. That's not a reason to avoid getting the treatment that you need. I know in Chicago, we work closely with Elvin, who's over at Collision World and runs a company called Chicago Rideshare. And there are these types of companies all throughout the country. And they provide collision service, repair work to drivers who have been involved in accidents. And they provide replacement vehicles so that drivers who have been involved in accidents don't need to stop earning money. Just because you were rear-ended at a red light isn't a death sentence. It doesn't mean that you can't pay the bills the next month. If you're in Chicago, we recommend you talk to Collision World, and I also recommend that you look around, whether you're in LA or New York or Las Vegas. Find companies that work with rideshare drivers. They exist, they're popping up everywhere, and they ensure that even after an accident, you're taken care of. Elvin, I know, is starting a company called Chicago Rideshare for those of you who are interested in renting cars to drive for Uber and Lyft. He's got great rates as well, so don't be a stranger over there. Let's talk about pre-accident, pre-incident. So I've taken you through insurance. That's the number one purchase that you need to make before you get into the rideshare world. But what's the second purchase? It's a Dashcam. It is a cost of doing business, and it is worth every penny. Every single driver who picks up passengers for hire must protect themselves. I don't care what camera you buy, I don't care what company you work with, you must have that in your car because it's your protection after an accident, and it's your protection if there is some incident in which you need to defend your name. So we get all sorts of cases at Legal Rideshare. We talk about accidents and insurance claims. We also talk about assaults and batteries. It's really sexy to talk about the passenger as the victim. That's what all of the news organizations want to harp on. But what's reality is much more often the driver's victim. And we are trying to do everything that we can to ensure that drivers are protected in those scenarios. What's going to prevent a driver from being attacked? One of those things is having a little red light up on your, in your dash area that shows the person in the car they're being recorded. We recommend putting up signs that say, "Smile, you're on camera," for your protection and for mine. And we actually give those out at Legal Rideshare. So if anybody's interested in that, you can send us a message and I'd be happy to put one in the mail for you. It's that important that people have this technology and have these warnings so that they're protected. We recently did an interview in The Guardian where we were talking about all of the events that we've seen with rideshare driver as victims. So we've seen sexual assaults, we've seen harassment, we've seen battery, we've seen express kidnapping, which is where a passenger puts a gun in the back of the driver and says, "Drive to the ATM, we're going to pull out all your money." It's a very dangerous job, and every precaution that you can take to protect yourself is worthwhile. Dash cams go from anywhere from $30 to $200. Get one that faces both directions. Out the vehicle is going to show accidents. That's going to protect you in an insurance claim. In the vehicle's going to protect you if somebody tries to harass you, hurt you, or makes a false accusation against you. So don't wait. That should be the first thing you do after today. When we talk about events, when we talk about instances of false accusation or background checks, one thing that we hear about often is deactivation. It's a really tough scenario. Deactivation is something that many drivers have faced, and unfortunately there's not much recourse for. I've said before, there's very little to no due process in rideshare. That's one thing at Legal Rideshare we're actually fighting for in Chicago. We're trying to work with local politicians to have a deactivation review board. We're trying to ensure that drivers don't get deactivated because of a false claim or an unsubstantiated claim. We would love to have the opportunity to defend rideshare drivers, and dash cams is a way to ensure that your version of the events are what presides. If the dash cam shows what happened, somebody claims you were harassing them, somebody claims you were drunk, well, we can pull that footage and we can help. I see we have a question from Mark, who's watching the Facebook Live right now. He wants to talk about the legal issues involving dashcam videos. That's a great question, Mark. When we talk about recording laws, there are essentially two different versions, and it depends on what state you live in. There's one-party consent states and two-party consent states. In short, a one-party consent state means only one person who's being recorded needs to understand or know that the recording is taking place. If you live in a state like that, like Illinois, you are able to put a dash cam in your car and you don't have to worry about even telling the passengers. You have consented to the recording in the vehicle, therefore it's fine. In a two-party consent state, which it's about half the states in the country, they require that every person on the recording is aware that the recording is taking place. Now there's a slight caveat there. In most states that are two-party consent, that only applies to private situations. So for instance, if you come to my house and I'm recording and we live in a two-party consent state, you have a reasonable expectation that in a private residence where you've been invited, there's going to be privacy. You know, what you say is not going to go out into the world. However, if you're a rideshare driver and you're a rideshare passenger, I would argue there is not an expectation of privacy. You don't have, you know, if you're on a city bus and you start talking and you say, something that's offensive or, racist or homophobic or whatever, you can't reasonably expect that other people aren't going to hear it, and therefore, you shouldn't have said those things out, where they could be heard. The same thing applies to rideshare. People don't have an expectation that when they're in the back of the rideshare car, they can just speak however they want without any repercussion. You are in a public place, and the words that you say can be used against you, and you have to expect that they will be. So I think rideshare drivers, whether they're in one-party consent states or two-party consent states, are fine regardless to have dash cams. But if you really want to protect yourself, put the sign up in your car, give notice that you are recording the vehicle or that you're recording the passengers in the vehicle. Even tell them when they get in the car, say, I just want you to know that I have a dash cam. This is for your protection, for my protection, to make sure that everybody's on the up and up. And you can give them the opportunity. If they don't want that, if they don't appreciate that, you can say, don't worry, I'll cancel the ride if you're uncomfortable with this. Whether that affects your rating or leaves somebody with a bad taste in their mouth, it's worth it because it's ultimately your safety and your reputation and your livelihood on the line. When we talk about what goes on in the rideshare car, we've heard all sorts of stories. We've heard about people being falsely accused of driving under the influence, falsely accused of harassment. It runs the gamut. Deactivation, as I was talking about earlier, is something that we're really concerned about, and something that we have been lobbying our local politicians and trying to gain some national notice and coverage on. Drivers need something to protect them so that they don't lose their livelihood on a whim. In Chicago, we've got a group called the People's Lobby. They're at the peopleslobbyusa.org. And what they're doing is they're trying to collectively bring drivers together to give a voice. And all sorts of issues are at play, but deactivation is one of them. And deactivation is something that everybody who's watching right now needs to take very seriously, because at the end of the day, you're one bad passenger away, you're one dishonest passenger away from losing your right to make a living. And if you get kicked off the app, even for a day, you have to wonder how you're going to pay the bills. So make sure that you're supporting groups that support you. The peopleslobbyusa.org is a great one to support, and I'm sure that everybody locally, whether LA, New York, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Houston, there's organizations everywhere that are trying to build these groups together to give the drivers a voice to help themselves. One of the things that we hear about most often and that the news tends to pick up on is minors, service dogs, child seats, things that drivers are faced with on a daily basis, but ultimately don't have a ton of information on how to handle. So let's talk about minors. The rideshare companies, they prohibit people under 18 from taking rideshare without a parent, without a guardian. That's all well and good. I think that's probably how it should be. We don't want children riding in cars with strangers, even the most upstanding strangers. It's not a great look, and it's not a great environment for anybody. But the problem that we're seeing is that rideshare companies are making drivers out to be the bouncers. You know, what's the driver supposed to do? Are they supposed to cart everybody who gets in the vehicle? Unfortunately, yes. If somebody looks like they're young, if somebody looks like, you know, they're going to soccer practice, or you can tell that you're taking them to a high school, or, you know, something along those lines, it's up to you to protect yourself. And what that means is ask the question, you know, how old are you? If you don't believe them, ask to see ID. It's not really fair. It shouldn't fall to the driver. We tell news organizations every single day that the rideshare companies need to do more to take the burden off the driver and protect everybody in the car. That includes the passenger, that includes the driver. But until they've taken those steps, you need to be turning down underage riders, because if something goes wrong, there could be insurance implications. Maybe the insurance doesn't protect you because the contract, essentially, the agreement is void between the driver and the rider. If there's an accusation of wrongdoing, that's obviously going to go very poorly for you. It's not worth the potential hazard. It's not worth the headache. It's not worth what could go wrong. Don't accept the ride. The same thing goes with child seats. In most states, there are laws for child seats, and you know what ages and weights, and you know each state is a little bit different. But it's ultimately on the driver of the vehicle to ensure that the child is protected. Now, I've driven Uber, and I've had people try to get into the car with little kids and no child seat. And when that happens, you have to take the smart, rational approach, which is, I'm sorry, I can't take this ride because I can't put that child's life at risk. If you get pulled over and you've got a small child in the back seat, not strapped in appropriately, that's on you. And maybe it's on the parent too, but it's your burden, it's your livelihood, it's your car. So again, that's not fair. I would like to see Uber partnering with some of these businesses that actually make travel car seats, or there's collapsible car seats, or there's a variety of innovations out there, and providing them to drivers so that nobody ever has to make that decision. Somebody shows up with a little kid, you pop your trunk, you say, here's the device. But until that happens, I either recommend you do have your own car seat in the back seat or in your trunk that's easily installed, or you just don't take the ride. Now, lastly, we hear about service dogs all the time. Excuse me. We hear about service dogs all the time, and it's a situation where the federal laws require that for-hire vehicles accept service dogs and animals into their cars. Uber and Lyft require it per their terms of service, and we've actually seen drivers be deactivated or suspended for not accommodating people with disabilities. So I know that when you drive rideshare, you're using your personal vehicle. Maybe you don't have an animal at home. Maybe you're allergic. That's something that you need to take into consideration as you get into this business, because if you don't accept the service animal, it could really come back to hurt you, and it could be one of those deactivation situations that we were previously talking about, where unfortunately there's not much recourse. So I recommend doing everything that you can to accept those rides and try to comply with the laws. So there's another question talking about deactivation and also dash cams. So there's been stories about Uber and Lyft deactivating drivers who post dash cam video. Probably about a year and a half ago, there was a big national story about a man in, I believe, Missouri, who was live streaming video from inside his car, and he was getting all these YouTube followers, and he was really becoming a celebrity in the rideshare world. That's a big no-no. That driver was deactivated. That driver, there was talk of criminal statute violations and charges being pressed. Your dash cam needs to be for your safety, not for your or your friends' entertainment. We've seen many videos out there. We're in all these Facebook groups. We've seen drivers post, funny scenarios or confessions of rideshare passengers, or you can name 1,000 different scenarios. Each time you post one of those videos, you're really risking a hammer being dropped on you. And I know that it's funny. I know that a lot of these are lighthearted, but the Dashcam is not for anybody but you, your insurer, your attorney. It's for your protection. So I highly recommend keeping those videos private. And really, there's no reason you should be storing them for forever anyway. Keep them for some period of time until a ride is rated, a review is left, and then you don't need to keep them. There's not much reason. So we actually answer a lot of these questions that you guys are answering on Ride Guru. So again, talking about what Ride Guru does for the driving community, it's really something. So they've got forums in which drivers can post questions, get answers. We are regular contributors on deactivation, on dash cams, on insurance, on what to do if you're in an accident. A lot of what we're talking about today is part of the Ride Guru platform. As a rideshare passenger, I use them all the time to compare prices. I guilty as charged, will search for the cheaper fare. So Ride Guru helps synthesize all that information over a variety of rideshare platforms. And they're not just here. They're in like 70 different countries. So no matter where you guys find yourselves, Ride Guru can help and gather information, gather data, answer questions. It's really just a nice environment, which is not something that can be said about a lot of the Facebook groups that I know I find myself in. There's just no judgment. It's all, how can we help you make more money? How can we help you get the questions answered that you need? Ride Guru's there. So at LegalRideshare, we have had the pleasure of working with so many different organizations, Ride Guru being one of them. We're so excited that they co-sponsored tonight. We've also worked closely with a group called Chicago Rideshare Advocate, obviously Chicago-based. We've done a bunch of different events with them. Anytime that there's a political rally, we were down at City Hall holding picket signs, making sure that rideshare drivers' rights are protected and that we're advocating for fair pay, better conditions, something as seemingly easy as getting better bathrooms at the O'Hare airport staging lots. Those are things that we're fighting for because it matters. Those are places, that's your office, that's your water cooler. You need to have the right environment, and we're happy that Chicago Rideshare Advocates is fighting that fight. There's also an organization, Road Warriors, who we've been working close with. They are Chicago-based as well. That's where we're located. They are part of the recent Drivers' Night Out, which is, Uber and Lyft as a structure try to atomize the workers. They try to keep them as separate as they possibly can. And one of the reasons why there's been such growth over the past year or so in drivers' rights, in better conditions in a lot of ways, in journalism, talking about the rights of the driver, the safety of the driver. It's because groups like Road Warriors are bringing people together and giving people a common voice. No longer is it just one guy or girl in the back of a car, in the front of a car driving around. It's a group of people who are fighting for a common good. So we're really excited to be working with them. Gig Workers Matter, another organization that is coming together to make sure that there's collective rights. And when I talk about collective rights, we could talk about unions, we could not talk about unions. I'm talking about making sure that drivers have a voice. And one voice is never as loud as many voices. So we've seen improvements. We see continued awareness. Gig Workers Matter is an organization that is fighting that fight, bringing people together and ensuring that your voice is heard. So we're really excited to be working with them. There are dozens, probably hundreds of organizations nationwide who are fighting this, this same fight. Drivers Unite Worldwide would be an excellent example of one who's fighting globally and locally. So we've got a titan in the rideshare world, Edward Escobar. He's the founder of Drivers Unite Worldwide. And what he's doing so effectively is he's giving a platform to local groups to do what they want to do. So the drivers in Chicago might see things a little bit differently than the drivers in San Francisco. That's okay. Edward is giving a platform to ensure that each organization can do what benefits its members, can make rideshare better locally. And if we make rideshare better locally, we're going to be in a much better place globally. So that's what Drivers Unite Worldwide is all about. And we're really excited to have spent time with Edward and to continue to work with him. We are nearing the end of Facebook Live question and answer tonight on Oscar Sunday, so I appreciate that you're taking the time away from the TV or maybe next to the TV during the Oscars. I want to thank Ride Guru for co-sponsoring this event. We are so excited and grateful to work with them. Ride Guru is a marketplace for all things rideshare. I recommend visiting it right now. Download the app. You're not going to be sorry. It's resources at your fingertips. Ride Guru. Visit right now. And Legal Rideshare. We always offer free consultations to rideshare drivers. If you have an accident, if you're injured, please call us. Do not fall into the trap of, I don't think I can afford it, I can't afford treatment. Give us a call. I promise you that we will be able to help you, be able to point you in the right direction, ensure that you have all the resources that you need to protect yourself, to keep moving, to keep driving, to keep going. So thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been a real pleasure. Good night.